What is up guys, Taiki here, and in this Farms of the Week video, I kind of want to discuss how, humble yield farmers like you and I, how we should be approaching the markets, because, there was a market crash, right? And, in this type of environment, I'm going to make some arguments on what kind of farms will outperform and what kind of farms will underperform. So if you like the content, please like and subscribe and leave a comment in the comment section below. Okay, so, DeFi destroyed financially. How are we ever going to financially recover from this? And, this weekend I was out with family and friends, whatever, and then I checked my phone and I see Bitcoin was trading at $43,000, and oh my god, my first initial reaction was Muh Health Factor. Oh no, oh no. So fortunately, did not get liquidated, right? Hallelujah. I think I started the day, or started Friday at 1.75 or something, and I think at the bottom, I think it hit 1.25 or something. So I use less volatile assets as collateral, such as Bitcoin and Ether. So I can have a certain I can feel relatively safe at 1.7. But obviously, if you're using more volatile assets like Avalanche, for example, you might want to bump it up a little bit. So I'm not going to discuss how to manage health factors because I have a bunch of videos on it. But I'm sure a lot of humble yield farmers were feeling the pain, right? Or were were very worried about feeling the pain. So I kind of made a video on how we should be farming in a risk-off environment back in May, right? This is, I made this pretty embarrassing video where I was out in my farm, but even I guess 7 months later, my sentiment does not change. I do have arguments on I guess I'm trying to say that farms with zero fundamentals are more likely to underperform in this environment than farms with actual fundamentals. Because in a bullish environment, people don't care if a project has zero fundamentals. They just want to participate in the short-term game and they just want to make money, right? But in this type of environment, people are scared, people are bearish, people are scared. People are trying to go risk off. They're not trying to I guess lose all their gains for the year, right? So you have to keep up with the markets and understand the sentiment, because farms will be affected, right? If your ingredient index very low, adapting your strategy. So in this type of environment, my strategy is always to look for coins with fundamentals, right? And trying to accumulate those coins, farm to accumulate. I've been doing this for the past couple of months, so it doesn't really change. But this video is more targeted towards newer participants, new farmers that are trying to make it all back in one trade. They're trying to participate in the short-term Ponzi's. But maybe this is not what you want to hear, but maybe this is what you need to hear. And this is just my opinion, just my hypothesis. I'm most likely not going to be right, but I'm going to argue that farms of fundamentals is what you want to be focused on. Than these no fundamental farms like new own forks that's popping up every single day, new Goose Finance forks that's popping up every single day. Because these will do well when people are risk on, right? When people's net worths are at all-time highs, they want to find ways to make more money. So they're not going to do research, they're going to ape and just hopefully they can be your yield. But in a risk-off environment, people's risk appetite is at all-time lows. People are more considered about preserving their wealth than growing their wealth. So in that type of environment, how do you think these will outperform? I would think not so well. Okay, and I kind of mentioned this in October. Because I'm pretty bearish on forks in general, right? And people kind of get upset by that, right? And they say things like, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about," people kind of get upset when I tell them that their new own forks is not going to make them a millionaire. But you kind of have to understand the dynamic dynamic going on here, right? Because people and developers, they see the success of Ohm, they see the success of Time, and they think to themselves, okay, how can I make money, right? Developers want to make money by just forking these things, promising high APYs, and then, just profiting off of new money entering. And these own forks are zero sum, right? Meaning that if you're making $1,000, then that means someone else is losing $1,000. And if you think about it, if these developers, I guess, give themselves 10-20% of their coins for marketing and further development, then where are you going to make your money, right? Because these own forks, I'm not bearish all own forks, right? I'm just saying 95% of these new own forks are probably going to go to zero. And I guess I was kind of too optimistic in my assessment that they're going to hit 9-figure market caps. I didn't know that there's going to be 5 own forks a week, every single week on all these chains. But I still stand by this hypothesis from like a month and a half ago, or I guess, yeah, a month and a half ago, that most of these ohm forks, I'm sorry, but they're going to trend to zero, right? Ohm, they're the big daddy, they're the original. They actually have a plan. I mean, they're here to stay, right? I'm very bullish Ohm. Time, Wonderland, I'm also bullish, right? They're not trying to be an Ohm fork. They used Ohm mechanisms to build out the treasury to become a DAO. That makes sense. Klima, not doing so well, but I think their narrative is interesting. It could be strong, but it is what it is. And I've often argued that if you're a new farmer in the space, instead of chasing these million, billion, trillion% APYs, you're just better off like looking for projects with fundamentals and then farming those coins rather than trying to participate in the Ponzi and trying to like make it rich, right? Because literally, I mean, I'm on YouTube a lot because I make these YouTube videos, and whenever I watch like a video on like farming, in the recommended section, there's always these videos about like, ooh, new Ohm fork, trillion% APY. Can this make you rich, right? And I'm like, dude, like, as a content creator, it's just like, okay, like, I guess these Ohm forks are hot because, I mean, it gets clicks, right? But I don't think it's like the best way to make money. And of course, you can make money playing these Ohm forks, right? If you keep up to date with the new launches and you get in the first couple of hours, maybe, you can like dump on people that get in like, like a day or two later. But I'm just making an argument that for 90% of market participants, it's probably not the best way to make money. I'm sorry, right? I'm sorry. Maybe you don't want to hear it, but I'm sorry. It's just something that I think. And like I mentioned, most are better off farming Joel. I mean, it doesn't have to be Joel. It can be like Spell or something, but most are better off farming Joel rather than trying to flip Ohm forks every single day. Spend all that energy managing positions on researching new opportunities. Never forget the EV of your own time, right? EV meaning expected value. Would you rather spend 2 hours a day like trying to look for Ohm forks, or would you rather spend 2 hours a day researching new opportunities and trying to look for farms that you can see yourself being in for many weeks, many months, etc.? And I got really tired of these Ohm forks last week when I'm like, hey, like, okay, I like Ohm, new forks are fun, but isn't it starting to get a little excessive? Like literally 90% of new projects are simple forks with a minor marketing twist because they're not trying to do anything new, right? They're just marketing new APYs, right? And when one fork goes to zero, then a new one pops up, and when that fork goes to zero and a new one pops up, and I'm like, come on guys, like, and then when I made this post, a bunch of people just like responded with like showing me their like own forks that they're bullish on. That was not the point. And these are signals that indicated that okay, maybe these own forks are not going to do well. Like I mentioned, not all own forks are bad. I like Wonderland, I like Klima, I like Rome, I like other ones. I'm just bearish 95% of the new ones. So what are the farms that with fundamentals, right? Because I'm arguing that these new Ponzi's not going to do that well. But as a farmer, you should look for ones with fundamentals where you can just sit comfy on your farm to accumulate, just accumulate those coins, and maybe over time they're going to appreciate in value. And I think Abracadabra and Spell is a good one, just because I've been talking about it for a while now on this channel. And yes, price has gone up a lot, then it's gone down a lot. But as a farmer, I don't really care what happens to the price. All I need to care about is, okay, does this thing have fundamentals? Yes. If so, how can I farm? Oh, I can farm it with stablecoins on multiple chains. Right now it's paying roughly 22% on Avalanche, which 22% versus a trillion% APY, right? Like, oh no, like this is boring. But I think these farms will outperform like on average these new own forks. So you can farm this on Avalanche, Phantom, Arbitrum, etc. And fundamentally, I mean, it's trying to do what MakerDAO does. It generates more fees. It's got a lower market cap. And you can make an argument that it's a good buy here, right? Me personally, I'm taking on enough risk as I am, and I've already positioned myself, right, in my portfolio to minimize taxable events for the rest of the year. So I don't really want to be taking on new positions. I don't want to be selling my existing positions unless it's like for tax loss harvesting. So I'm just comfortable. It's really farming Spell with stablecoins. Is like that's kind of what I've been doing. And Daniele last night mentioned that they're looking for ways to turn off Spell emissions for these curve pools. And this is a fundamentally bullish catalyst for Spell because maybe people were selling Spell in the past couple of weeks because they anticipated that these emissions would keep going on. But if Spell is no longer going to be a farm token, right, or is going to be less of a farm token, maybe there's going to be less sell pressure for the price of Spell. And there was an update yesterday mentioning that these spell emissions are going to be going down. They're going to be going into veCRV bribes, which I'll go over later. So my initial reaction was, oh my God, like, do I buy spell? If not, how can I farm spell as much as I can in the next couple of days, weeks, etc. Right? I don't know the timeline of them turning off emissions, but that was my initial reaction. Right? They have already reduced emissions on Avalanche. They're going to keep reducing it right over time because they don't really need to incentivize, farming because they're already a huge project. So this is what I'm thinking about. And this morning, Spell was actually listed on Coinbase, right, which is pretty insane, right? And it's up a lot. So Spell is kind of considered to be a meme coin, right, because magic internet money, etc. And I think for most projects, these Coinbase listings are just like short-term pumpamentals, and people just like sell into the pump and whatnot. But not financial advice, purely speculating. But if Shiba and Doge taught us anything, I think unit economics make a lot of it does matter, right? People buy Shiba and Doge because they can just like buy a million Doge for like $100 or whatever. So maybe normies, right? Like 3 months from now are more willing to buy Spell because it's a penny than something like Bitcoin, which is like at $50,000 or something, right? So always have to think about mimetics, normie fundamentals, normie pumpamentals, right? I own Spell, right? Full disclosure, but I've been farming it for the past couple of weeks. So let's kind of touch on the veCRV bribes, because I argue that as you do more research on the fundamentals of these projects, you're going to get into this rabbit hole of understanding DeFi more, because Curve, Convex, those things are kind of difficult to understand. I think I understand them well enough to the point where I can make a video in the near future. But let's kind of discuss this idea of when you do research on project on Abracadabra, maybe you get into the rabbit hole and learn more about how DeFi primitives work. And I argue that one of the most important DeFi primitives is Curve, right? And indirectly, Convex. So Convex is, they're primarily on Ethereum, so I don't really talk about it, right? Because Ethereum farms are just like lower EV in general. But Convex is one of those things I'm like long-term bullish on, and I think it's one of those things that I want to accumulate in a bear market. So I don't really touch Ethereum-based farms just because it's really hard to exit them, right? If you want to manage your position. But maybe you can make an argument that Convex, you should accumulate this in a bull market, in a bear market, because how Convex works is that one Convex controls veCRV, right? So if you're a stablecoin project, how can you be a good stablecoin project if there's no liquidity for your stablecoin? How do you create liquidity for your stablecoin? Well, by putting your stablecoin on Curve, right? So here, right, the MIM3 pool is a pool on Curve where it's MIM, USDC, and USDT, I believe. And Spell historically has incentivized liquidity for the MIM3 pool by offering them Spell rewards. So if you go back here, this pool is a MIM3 pool on Avalanche, and they're incentivizing you to provide liquidity by offering you Spell rewards. And most projects have to do this, right? If you're a new project, you kind of have to incentivize liquidity. And this is where yield farming comes into effect, where if you believe in a project, you do the research, you can just farm these coins while they're offering farming rewards. In the future, they might run out, but in the short term, might as well farm these coins. But I think Abracadabra is getting to the point where they're mature enough to they don't have to offer like high emissions anymore, just because they're already cemented as one of the blue chips in the space. So I'm not going to spend too much time on Curve mechanics, right? But generally, Curve and Convex are, I guess, assets that protocols want to own, just because owning Convex gives them, I guess, a right to vote on Curve rewards to go to their stablecoin pool. So TLDR, how Daniele and how their project, how their team can lower emissions, right? Spell emissions, and still get away with it is because, well, maybe they're going to buy up Convex and vote for Curve rewards to go to their 3 pool, right? So instead of offering Spell rewards, they can just buy up Convex and then vote for Curve rewards to go to their MIM3 pool. So I'm just speculating, right? None of this has happened yet, but this is kind of like the rabbit hole that I get into when I research these fundamentals. Because if you're new to DeFi, like, why does Curve have a moat? Why is Convex a thing, right? It's really hard to understand. But as you get deeper into DeFi, as you get deeper into the space, you kind of understand why these assets exist in the first place. Because CRV is an asset that's uber inflationary, right? And historically it's an asset that trends down over time just because it's a super inflationary token. However, their emissions are going down over time, and I think they've cemented themselves enough. It's one of the few DeFi 1.0 assets that are actually doing well because people want to own them. People want to own them, and not even people, protocols want to own them. Okay, so let's go back here. And even Terra, right? I mean, I talk about Terra a lot, right? UST. Well, UST is a stablecoin. And what good is UST if there's no liquidity on Ethereum? And there was a proposal recently to increase liquidity on Ethereum, curve UST pools through the use of Vodium, related to Curve, Convex, and Tokemak. Okay? So if you dig deeper, you see that $12 million in UST, right? This is Terraform Labs. They're proposing it to swap that to Luna and to give that for convex incentives, right? So essentially, they're going to be bribing, I believe, convex and veCRV holders by paying them Luna if they promise to vote for UST pools receiving liquidity. If this is too confusing, don't worry, right? It's very confusing, and I'm sure I'm not really explaining it in the best way possible. And I'll make a video in maybe in like later in the month or maybe like early next year about like how these mechanisms work in the first place. Because I feel like Convex and Curve are assets that is like one of those only assets that protocols actually want to accumulate, which is weird, right? Anyways, $250 million in UST is going to be used to farm Convex and Curve, right? Return to the community pool in 6 months. And we're starting to see a bunch of these protocols like KeeperDAO, BadgerDAO, even Terraform Labs. They're trying to accumulate more Convex because they don't want to give out Luna incentives, right? They'd rather just farm Convex and then use their voting gauges to redirect Curve rewards to their own pool. I'm not going to touch on Tokemak in this video, but they want to use $2 million of Luna for Tokemak incentives. And at the end of the day, I think stablecoins, right, whether it be centralized or decentralized stablecoins, stablecoins are needed in DeFi. And for stablecoins to thrive, it has to be on Curve. And for these stablecoins to exist on Curve, they need to incentivize liquidity on Curve. And for to incentivize liquidity on Curve, they have to pay out farm tokens, right, as emissions. And that's how Spell has, incentivized liquidity for MIM. But obviously, protocols don't want to keep doing that, right? They don't want to keep paying out farm tokens for the rest of the time. So what protocols are doing now is saying, okay, we don't want to offer Spell emissions, right, or Luna emissions. Let's just farm out Convex. Let's just buy Convex and use our treasury to buy it and then redirect farming emissions to our pool, if that makes sense. So tiny rabbit hole that I got into. It's okay if you don't understand it, right? I don't necessarily think Convex is something that you need to buy now. I don't even own Convex, right? But it's something that I want to accumulate in the future, and these are the types of fundamental research that I feel like everyone should do if they want to make it in crypto, right? Like you don't make it in crypto by following pump signals from these random Discord messages, right? Amazon pumper number 8712, right? I guess the first 8,711 groups went to zero. So, they're making more groups, and, it's, unfortunately, these things have like a bunch of members, and I'm sure people are trying to like make it by like buying low cap altcoins. But come on, you're just getting dumped on, right? You're just getting dumped on. So in conclusion, do the research, find good farms, and yield opportunities, farm to accumulate, have a plan. Even in a bullish environment, my strategy has adapted to this type of environment, right? Just because these strategies tend to scale more, right? As I guess like the more degen ones, you can do it if you have a small portfolio, but as your portfolio grows, it doesn't really scale because these degen plays, these coins are very liquid. So like I don't want to pay like 1% slippage every single time to like swap between these tokens and whatnot. So there's that. And I'd rather earn 20% on bullish assets than $1,000,000% on Ponzus that will go to zero, right? That's kind of how I think about it. So there's that. To wrap up the video, I kind of want to discuss Astroport, right? So Astroport, I'm bullish Terra, right? Terra's actually held up pretty well actually recently, despite the drop. But unfortunately, the lock drop delayed it was supposed to come launch today, but it's going to come out December 14th, right? For those with Avalanche Rush PTSD, right? Don't worry, right? Am I disappointed? Yes. But it's fine, right? It is what it is. I guess everything gets delayed in crypto. But I do want to make a clarification because in my last video, right, I mentioned that the airdrops, the DeFi chats, I said mistakenly that I said I'm only going to receive the Terra Luna stakers aspect, right? Because I had B Luna on Anchor on September 9th. So I'm eligible for this part of the airdrop, but I said that I'm not going to be eligible for the TerraSwap LP airdrop because I wasn't a liquidity provider on TerraSwap. Well, I was wrong, right? I'm actually going to be eligible for this airdrop as well, right? And I'm sure that most people that's been in the Terra ecosystem, like back in the days, will be eligible as well because I was long farming on Mirror, right? I often talk about like the delta neutral strategies, like how do you farm on Mirror, or how do you farm on Terra, etc. And when you farm on Mirror, you're essentially also farming on TerraSwap because they're the same. Mirror and TerraSwap is the same. It's just different UI. So, it was a brain fart. I confirmed with Joseph. He's at Delphi Digital Labs. And he mentioned that, yes, like if you were long farming on Mirror back on September 9th, you're going to be eligible for this airdrop. So, if you've been doing the strategies that I've been outlining, I guess since July, and you stayed in those farms, you're going to get both these airdrops. So hopefully this airdrop is going to be good. These tokens will be claimable on December 20th. Well, because the phase 1 of the lock drop got delayed 8 days, I'm assuming that you're going to be receiving these airdrops on December 28th, right? And if it gets delayed further, then maybe January or whatnot. But this is Astro, like I mentioned, is another example of a farm that I'm going to be looking to farm to accumulate, just because they're trying to be the curve, Uniswap, and balancer of the Terra ecosystem, right? Because no offense, TerraSwap, but there's no moat, right? TerraSwap is going to be overridden, will be taken over by Astroport just because it's got better UI, better tokenomics, just everything, right? So just wanted to make that clarification. So thank you guys for watching and have fun farming out there.